Hey everybody, today I am taking a look at 4 filler games that I have played recently, and if you can't tell by the title of this video, I rate all these games quite highly indeed. So the games I'm talking about are World Exchanges, we have Rome in a Day, we have The Number, and we also have Vaalbara. But before I share my thoughts on these games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in my show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. So let's start with Vaalbara. This is a 2 to 5 player game that takes around 25 minutes to play. And this is a character driven kind of initiative set collection game where you're going to be simultaneously playing these character cards and trying to gain these scoring cards to try and get as many points as you can. Now the scoring cards are pretty simple in the way they work. Like some might be things like if you get more of these cards, then you'll get more points each time you collect them. Or some of them might not score you instantly, but if you collect more than one, you'll get a big chunk of points. Some of them will score you points based on different types of sets you've got. All very standard set collection stuff. But the gameplay really does come through with these character cards and the way they interact with each other. So not only are these cards absolutely amazing to look at, they come with an initiative value in the top left-hand corner here, which is going to be the order in which you collect the cards or the scoring cards. And the lower the card means you're going to get first dibs on those cards. But you can see that each of these cards also comes with a unique ability on it. Like for example, this level 3 hunter will say if you play this before the other players, you'll get an additional 3 points. And because each time somebody plays a card, you know what they've played and it's open information, then you can kind of use these quite savvily to know what, I know that all the other players have played their 1s and 2s, therefore I can quite comfortably play this one and guarantee myself those 3 extra points. And let's take a look at some more cards here. So this one says gain 2 points for each of your neighbours who have played an odd initiative value. So maybe if you know that your opponent really wants a certain objective card, they play that one, you'll smash this one down and get yourself those extra 2 points. This one will double the reward of the land you claim, but it's a very high valued card, so you're going to get a lot less control over guessing what you want. This one just gives points to other players, but it gives you a very good initiative. This one here says you gain 3 points per forest in your realm. So that's one of the scoring cards that you collect, which is, I think they're just pure points cards, but this one obviously is going to be great to play after you've collected a bunch of those ones. This one lets you steal 2 points from the player who played before you this round. So again, if you think someone's going to play a lower initiative, you can play this one. But of course, other people are going to know you're going to go into the game with these tactics and might try and throw a spanner in the works and throw you off your plan. This one here says if you play after your neighbours, this round you gain 5 points. So it's a value 10. So if you think that your opponents aren't going to play the 10 or 11, or some of the 11 or 12, you might want to play that one. The fighter, the level 1 initiative here, allows all the other players with a fighter in hand to give up their fighter basically and gain a point. So maybe they want to play other cards. And this level 7 tracker here says swap a land card from the first or second row. Because you have a bit of foresight in this game to look what's coming up next, you can swap it with the top card of the lore deck. Now this is a very fast flowing game. You're always just smashing cards down and getting your scorecard, so it definitely has a nice forward momentum to it. It's nice and snappy. I'm always engaged with this one. Now I like games of this style, and there are quite a few of them out there. Games like Libertalia, games like Citadels, even games like King of 12, which use dice. I do tend to like them, but sometimes I find them a little bit chaotic and have a bit too much going on in how the characters interact with each other. I think this game is probably the simplest one of all these styles of games that I've played, but it might just be my favourite now, not only because it is so accessible to get to the table. The kind of level of interaction in this game doesn't feel frustrating. It feels like if you pull off a card and get the maximum benefit from it, it feels great. But if you don't, you can probably still claim a good objective card and score points anyway. So it's maybe a little bit more player friendly in that respect. Now I do have a small nitpick with it, and that is that some of these cards are much swingier than others. So for example, there's one, I can't remember which one it is, that allows you to swap a card from your score pile from a random draw card from the score pile. Sometimes that can be game-breakingly great. sometimes it can be very uneventful, and I have seen that swing the winner of a game or not. But I don't really let that bother me too much because it is so quick. It is a really breezy filler. I think you've done a great job of making this feel concise, compact. It gives a nice amount of game for 25 minutes. Again, it looks fantastic. Some of the cards are pretty interesting, and all in all, I think it's much better than I thought it was going to be. I heard some relatively good things said about this game, but playing it myself, I can certainly see that's true. And I think this one has a lot of life in it in terms of being easy to get to the table and then just smashing out a few games and using that simultaneous card selection system where you have to really get into the mind of your opponents to play the best card at the best time. And something I didn't mention is that although there's 12 cards in your deck, you only ever have 5 in your hand at any time. So you don't have a complete perfect information about what your opponent's potential is, and they don't have the full picture on what you can do yourself. So I actually really do like that twist in it, and it stops you being paralyzed by having too many decisions. So that is Vaalbara, and if you like these styles of games, this is a very strong example. Next up, let's talk about Rome in a Day. This is a 2 to 5 player game that takes 15 to 30 minutes to play. And this is a tile placement game where the actual tile placement isn't actually the biggest part of the game. It's all about how you acquire those tiles, because each player is going to have an identical stack of tiles, which they're going to shuffle and put face down. And then round after round, they're going to draw 5 of those tiles from that stack and place them in order. And then you're going to put a building, which is a predetermined order, on the first 2 tiles that you drew. And then what you're going to do is that you are going to divide up those tiles however you see fit into 2 groups. So you could split it, say, in a group of a 2 and a 3. You could do a 4 and a 1. You could even do a 0 and a 5 if you wanted to. Bearing in mind that whenever you place a smaller group, you will assign one of these gems to it, which is quite a strong way to gain points in the game. So if you have, the more gems you have, the more points you are going to acquire. Now, once you've divided them up, each player is going to select either that bigger group or smaller group and add it to their little display of tiles, and they'll keep the remaining tiles that was not selected from them. And then you're trying to build this little kind of province out and try to have the matching buildings next to the matching tile colour. So you can see here that these kind of purple buildings are next to these purple hexes. Therefore, that building there is going to score 3 points because it's one building times 3 for 3 points. So it's all about trying to optimally place these so that everything sits in the right place and is adjacent to the relevant hexes. And I like the way that you can actually use a bit of foresight in this game, because you can have a look at what is coming up for your opponent's buildings. You don't know what tiles are going to come with them, but you know the building type, so you know when is the opportunity for me to grab the tiles that I need, because if I miss that chance, I might not score a particular colour at all. That's pretty much the gist of the game, but it does have some good decisions there. And as you start to paint a picture about what you want and what your opponents want, you can really leverage that I split you choose mechanism to your benefit. Because if you know that your opponent really wants a purple building, you might put that purple building on its own, knowing that your opponent will take it, and you'll get all the remaining stuff that you wanted for yourself. But of course, your opponent knows that. So it's all about trying to do that quick maths in your head to determine what is going to benefit you the most. I have seen this game won in different ways, by having a huge map, but I have seen it won as well by having a very small map and really focusing on these gems, because those points really do ramp up if you focus on collecting them. And that's pretty much the gist of the game. It's very fast. I mean, we are talking 20 minutes to play this one. It scales extremely well because most of the play is simultaneous, and it's just a pleasant game to play. I really do enjoy this one. It really does focus on that I split you choose mechanism, which is what it should be all about. Now, I tend to really like that mechanism. It's seldom explored actually in board games, and this one does a good job of making that mechanism accessible in a nice fast package. And I rate it quite highly. Much like games like Vaalbara, this one is going to benefit from the ease of play rather than maybe the layers and layers of strategy. But sometimes you need to take that advantage. And I think a lot of times games, we underestimate the accessibility of games being an important factor to get it to the table. Because you can teach this one to pretty much anybody. I think most people are going to have a great time with it. Is it a game that you're going to keep on smashing out again and again and again and again? Maybe not, but it's a good one to have in your collection to bring out for the right occasions, and you're still going to have a lot of fun with dividing up those tiles. So that is Rome in a Day, definitely a pleasant game. Let's move on now to The Number. This is a 3 to 5 player game that only takes around 15 minutes to play, and out of all of these, I have no doubt in saying that this is going to be the most polarizing of them, because you're either going to love this and see its charm, or you are going to struggle to understand where the game is here, and you're not going to get much from it. But this is a very simple concept of a game where you are trying to write a 3-digit number, and basically if you write the highest number that doesn't have any replica numbers below it in terms of that number order, then your number is going to score, essentially. And if you do write that high number without any duplicates, then you're going to get some bonus points as well. But you are going to have to cross off those numbers from your number sheet, meaning that you cannot use them again. And of course, the more times you score, your options are going to get squeezed, and your opponents are going to have a much better idea about what you are able to play and what you are likely to play. So you could either take a bit of a gamble here, go for a high number, and get a ton of points, because you are going to not only score the bonus points, you're going to score the first digit in that 3-digit number. Or you can play it a little bit simpler and go further down that pecking order, knowing that no duplicates are going to go beneath you, but secure those points quite confidently. This game also does have an additional twist where at the end of the round, you are going to not only score your final number, double points, so you've got to kind of hold back and hold on to some numbers, and of course if you hold on to those high numbers and everybody's done that, then again the chances of you duplicating a number is going to be so much higher, but that comes with more bonus points. But also you're going to get an additional point for every single number that you've ticked off, so the more numbers you tick off the better, essentially, but of course your options are going to get squeezed. You're going to play through 2 rounds of that, taking 5 turns each round, and the player with the most points at the end of those 2 rounds will be the winner. That's essentially the game. It is so simple, and it's one of those games that you don't really need the physical copy of the game here to play it, because you could play it with a pen and paper. But I have to think this game is wonderful. I find it so charming and so enjoyable, and these are the kind of games that just go down gangbusters for me and my game group. Now, as I said earlier, I think some people are going to bounce off this hard. They're really going to struggle to, find the gaminess of it. But I do think there is more here than meets the eye. I think there are certain levels and layers to the gameplay, and I think that's going to be up for debate. But I personally think it is wonderful. I have no doubt in saying that I'm going to rack up tons of plays of this one. And this is a game that I would happily play almost any time, anywhere, any place, because it just does it for me. These are the games I like. It's novel, it's different, and maybe that's a big factor in why I enjoy it so much, because we play so many games and there's so much repetition. This one feels distinctly unique. It feels like unlike anything else I've played, and I love it for those reasons. So again, this is going to be one of the definitely the most polarizing games. People are going to love it, people are going to hate it. I happen to fall in the camp that loves it, but I definitely know that's not going to be the case. And I even understand why people wouldn't like it, but again, that's not the case for myself. So I think if you like quirkiness in your games, I would certainly recommend giving The Number a try. And I'm going to go all out and say this is a recommendation from me. It's going to get my chairman's commendation because I enjoy it that much. And the final game I'm talking about today is World Exchanges by Emperor S4. This is a 2 to 4 player game that, according to the box, takes 20 to 40 minutes. But from my own experience, I've never had a game of this go beyond 30 minutes. But this one is actually an economic game, which is quite rare to see in such a short game, where you are buying and selling these building cards. And these building cards come in 3 different categories. You've got the blue ones, the green ones, and the yellow ones. And they also have a figure on them in terms of how much those buildings cost to buy from a shared market. But below that figure, you've got an increased value, which is what these buildings are going to be worth to sell during particular rounds in the game. So you've got 12 rounds in the game, and some might say, well, if you sell this one in either the 3rd or the 6th round, then it's going to be worth an extra 200 points or 200 money, which is essentially the same thing. So I also like the way that these cards are held in a shared market. So as long as they don't belong to you, they are vulnerable to be taken by the other players. And because you have such a fixed capacity in what you can keep in terms of your own money, because you are capped at having 1,000 at any time, sometimes you might want to sell them for a profit and make them vulnerable for the other players to take them, with the aim of buying them back for cheaper again, or at the face price again later, and have them in your tableau for your endgame scoring, essentially. Because not only are these buildings going to be worth points based on their face value at the end of the game, as the game progresses and you are measuring how much money you've spent and acquired, then you're going to be drawing this kind of cash flow line through these different symbols, which each time you cross through a relevant color matching these certain types of buildings. So for each blue symbol that I've ticked through, my blue buildings are going to be worth an extra 100 points at the end of the game. So again, there's so many things you need to juggle here, because additionally on this cash flow sheet, you are crossing through the speech bubbles, which will push you up a track, and if you're highest up the track at the end of the game, you'll get more points. And also you're trying to reach these stars, where if you end your cash flow at those exact spots, then you'll score more points based on a sliding scale. So the more you hit, the more points you will get. And there's also these public objectives that you're trying to go for, which will trigger at a certain point in the game, either at the halfway point or at the end game point. So this game really is all about timing, doing things at the right time, and buying and selling at the right time. And I also love how you get one opportunity per game to do a double buy action, and one opportunity per game to do a double sell action, where you can really fly up and down this track to to get all the little symbols that you need. So it really is about spinning those plates, always increasing your capital, selling at a profit, buying again and securing the points that you want. Now you have more money on the sheet to buy more buildings, etc. This game is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the most unique games that I've played in a while. And I've already spoken about the number in this video. And not only is this my favorite game out of these four, I think this is one of my favorite games that I've played in the last year. I think it is absolutely phenomenal and one of the best kind of bang for your bucks in terms of the time it takes and the depth of play here that I've seen in a long time. I think this is a truly great game, and I'm so happy to have this in my collection. And I really want to spread the awareness about this one, because I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. It's an economic game without the stuffiness of an economic game. It almost feels like a roll and write in terms of using a dry erase board to manage or to monitor your money. There's variability in terms of player powers and of the different player sheets you can play with. It's tactical, but it's strategic at the same time. You can really think ahead and plan when to buy and sell things, and it's just absolutely a joy to play, and I could not recommend this one enough. So that is World Exchanges, a fantastic filler game, and certainly well deserved of a chairman's commendation. So there we have it, that concludes the video. We have 4 very different games here that are all very special in their own unique way. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video as much as I've enjoyed talking about these games. These are all fairly new out there, and it's nice to see that there's filler games still being pumped out that are of extremely high quality. So if you have enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.